Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Oh, I can take off the chat screen. Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Because this is Twitch, I can take off that chat screen. Hold on. I gotta find this. My God, me and these windows. Is it an overlay? Like I'm, okay. It's off now. All right. Oh, okay. So we're getting echoes. You shouldn't. If you're getting echoes, that might be on your end. Are you getting echoes, JJ? Because I haven't changed anything with my sound setting. Let me check my sound settings, but everything should be fine. Yep. So I see Bag and Puppies says he's getting echoes. JJ, you said hello already. Are you getting echoes? Let me know. So before we get started, we have some interesting things to cover. But before we get started, let me do my grifting. First, I got to show you my new shirt. JJ gets no echoes. Okay, got to show you the new shirt. I've already sold quite a few of these, but it's in my merch store, tinyurl.com/pinkflamemerch. But it's my touch grass shirt. Figured sometimes we just need this, particularly when we're talking about the LNC and the reactions or the overreactions. So definitely pick up your touch grass shirt. This is one of my favorites so far now. So yeah, and JJ, I gotta tell you a funny shirt I saw. I don't no such thing as IP, but this is a candidate shirt right now. I'm probably going to order it from the candidate, you know, to give them some money. But when their campaign is over, I totally want to do this shirt for Cult of RONR. You know, the straight out of Compton shirt, and then there's all the variations of it. This guy's got a shirt that says straight out of order. And I'm like, oh, that is perfect. We gotta make that. That's as good as is that a gavel in your pocket shirt. JJ has that. JJ, have you worn that shirt to a meeting yet? That's what I want to know. But straight out of order. That is just perfect. But a candidate is doing that, and I'm not going to ever steal a candidate's thunder. So I'm probably going to buy the shirt from the candidate, and then after November, make it for Cultivar ONR, because that's fantastic. And it is a mimosa. And I still haven't figured out yet with Ecamm how I can see bits. So if anyone's doing bits, I don't think I've yet figured out yet with Ecamm if anyone has any extra bits. And I'm not like, yeah, I am trolling for money. I'm always trolling for money, but I'm not like trolling for a lot. Like, even you want to throw a couple pennies. I just want to, I'm trying to troubleshoot. I use Ecamm. I don't use OBS. I know it shows up with OBS. Deal with it. I'm not going to use OBS. I use Ecamm. So I posted this question in the Ecamm community on how I can enable it to see bits, and also that it says out loud the message. You Twitch people know what I'm talking about. But other than that, along the bottom, I shouldn't have all super chats matter for Twitch. It should be something about bets, like show me your bets. That sounds dirty. This isn't a Cultivar ONR. I can't get dirty in this one. So Patreon, need more patrons. So it's patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. How else can I grift to irritate all the right people who are going to be, you're monetizing your LNC commentary? I'll drink to that. Don't remove me, bro. And I have a live studio audience, by the way. Wayne of Wayne Shut the Door fame is here. Wayne, shut the door.
I did.
Okay. All right. So mostly there's not a large quantity of things going on. I want to get centered here, but there is the couple things we have to talk about are big subjects, or they could be big subjects. And the two primary things we need to talk about is Idaho and New Mexico. I never thought I would know so much about Idaho. I can't point to Idaho on a map, but I can tell you what their election laws are now at this point. We have? We've been through Idaho?
From Montana.
I don't even know where Idaho's at. I know it's shaped. I know what it's shaped like.
From Montana, we came through Idaho.
Okay, well, I have no idea. I know it's, if you were looking at a map, it's to the left of Colorado.
To the left and to the...
It's up and left.
To the up and left.
Okay. Where's it in relation to Oregon? Is it right next to Oregon?
Yep.
Okay, got it. And there's someone from Idaho here who says, I'm the chair of the Idaho Judicial Committee, and I never thought I'd know this much about Idaho. Oh, I know, man. I've spent more time in Idaho statutes than I have in Colorado statutes. But anyway, so we're going to talk about Idaho. We're going to talk about New Mexico. And let me pull up the LNC list, because I want to make sure, because of course I'm not prepared. Me? Organized? No. I want to make sure there's nothing else. I want to cover all the minor stuff, and then we'll go to Idaho, and then we'll go to New Mexico. All right. So since last week, what's the date today? Today's the 19th. So since the 12th. So I'm looking on the LNC list since the 12th. All right. We have our weekly, not weekly, God, can you imagine? Though I'm such a glutton for punishment, I probably would love weekly meetings. I wouldn't want to do minutes that often, but I'm a meeting whore, man. I just love going to meetings. But we have monthly e-meetings, and it was going to be September 4th, right? 4th. But that is Labor Day weekend. And if you're planning on being in Colorado anyway, or you're free that weekend, you're invited to the Libertarian Party of Colorado camping trip. Just shoot me an email. I've been inviting everyone for all over the country. So, because people keep saying they want to come on like a, what do you call it? Open dispersed camping?
Open dispersed camping.
Yeah, so it's not at a campground. It's like in
the National Forest.
In the National Forest. So it's like real camping. In real mountains. I know some of y'all think you got mountains and they're super cute. I've seen them. They're not like Colorado mountains. I mean, they're adorable, but they're not Colorado mountains. So you're invited. If you wanna come, just let me know. But you're gonna need some camping gear because it's not a campground. It's not pre-set up cabins or anything.
No toilets, no running water.
Well, there might be running water.
Oh, there's a creek.
There's a creek, right?
So that counts as running water.
Yeah, but you need a tent and all of that kind of jazz.
Or camper.
Or camper, but I'm talking about people from out of state. Well, you could drive here. But anyway, let me know. So the meeting was going to be the 4th, and Wayne was going to have to haul my happy ass like 20 or 30 miles. Like, we were going to have to leave the campsite so I could go do my LNC meeting. But it turns out everybody has plans that weekend. So we moved it to an inauspicious day, but life has to move on to September 11th. Very inauspicious day, but that's the following Sunday. Our electronic meetings are on Sundays. So it's going to be Sunday, September 11th will be our next e-meeting. And why is that important to you? Well, it's important to you because we might discuss New Mexico. But besides that, it's more important to you probably, or it affect more people, is there was recently a call for volunteers for the Convention Oversight Committee, the Awards Committee, and the Information Services Committee. I think we're voting on those positions at that meeting. But if you've applied for one of those committees, come to that meeting and speak to your nomination in public comment. Because we got a ton of nominations. And if you want a chance, unless like you're in, let's face it, same thing with state parties, county parties, no different with national. A lot of times it's who you might know on the LNC. And if you're somebody that nobody knows, unless your application is just like so phenomenal that people would be an idiot not to vote for you, you gotta show up. You gotta show your face if you're not really well known. And I could tell you, at least for me, it means a lot when someone shows up to a meeting to speak to their nomination. So people who I don't know, they might have a good application, but if they don't bother to show up or even not just show up, here's another thing I'm going to recommend that you do. Write the entire LNC and ask them for their vote. It's just like donations. You don't get money as a candidate unless you ask for it. A lot of times you don't get votes unless you ask for it either. It's no different internally than it is running for office.
Yeah, the faint sailor never gets the fair maiden.
We're not talking about going and ravaging fair maidens, but I mean, there's a lot of people that I didn't know that I voted for because they asked me to. And I had somebody, I'm not going to mention names, somebody's already ahead of the curve on all of y'all, because I already had somebody write me today and ask me for my vote for one of those committees. And it was someone, I probably would have voted for anyone, it's someone who I did already know and work with, but there's been times where it's people I don't know. But that shows some initiative and shows that you really want to be on the committee. So, long story short, if you've applied for one of those committees, come to the September 11th meeting, speak to your nomination, and email the entire LNC. There's a form for it on the website. If you scroll down to the footer where it says Libertarian National Committee, you pick that up. There's a form where you can email entire LNC and ask people for your vote. Sell yourself. If you haven't applied yet but you want to and didn't know, applications close on August 26th, so you have time. Go to lp.org and there's an article under news that says LNC seeking committee applicants, and the links to all the applications are there. So you still have a week. But I'm going to tell you, the competition is tough. I haven't looked yet at the spreadsheet because it's in jot form, so it puts it all in the spreadsheet. But if I had to guess, we've probably gotten at least 50 applications for each committee. But that's just a guess. Just judging because I get a little email notification, but I don't go and even download them or look at them until the deadline has passed, because I'll just be doing a million times of work. So that's a big thing coming up. What else is on that agenda? I think I gave notice for New Mexico, but it doesn't mean it'll come up. I just gave notice. So I didn't blow notice. And talking about blowing notice, that's really what New Mexico is all about, isn't it? That would be funny if I tried to bring up New Mexico without proper notice, when the whole issue with New Mexico is lack of proper notice. Okay, let's see what else has happened since the 12th. We have Idaho, but we're going to go to that. The minutes for the Alexandria meeting are up in draft. Please go and review them if you wish. The historical committee elected 2 members, Lisa Gansky and Samuel Bowler. Oh, I know what else I wanted to tell you guys. Okay, because I am just waiting. I'm just waiting for the Eeyores to spin this in a negative way. Okay? So, Todd Hagopian posts, and the attachment I talk about is on the LNC. We're not going to pull it up. I'm just going to read you what he said. He said, "Hello, folks. I've attached the monthly financial reports along with a summary of key points. Please let me know if you have questions." Now, let me tell you something I already like a lot. Most people do not read through financial reports for fun. I know that might be surprising to those of you who are accountants and other insane people like that, but it's kind of like me, like, it's very difficult for me to believe that people aren't reading Roberts for fun, but you know, that's such is life. Most people are not reading financial reports for fun. So to just post to the LNC list, here's our end of month financials, you want to know how many people are really going to dig through it? Very few. What I love that Todd has done that I haven't seen in the years before is he summarizes it for people who don't might not understand the charts or just wants to know what's the bottom line. I don't want to look through a 20-page financial report, you know? So he summarizes it, which I think is fantastic. So here's his summary. Cash position. Our cash position remains strong with a current cash reserve of around $208,000, which, you know, when we were in the negative, I'm pointing to Wayne, not that long ago. Yeah. We have a reserve of over $200,000 now, far above our $81,000 cash reserve target. So we're more than double what we need in reserves. Revenue, so we had a pullback in revenue following the convention bump, perfectly expected, but over our revenue. But our revenue for the month was still $142,000, which is a little bit higher than our $139,000 average. So we are still above average for non-convention monthly revenue years. So when you keep reading in some of these really just awful passive-aggressive Facebook groups, no, we're not losing donors. No, we're not losing money. We're ahead. Not sorry. Touch grass right now. If this upsets you, just go and touch some grass. I don't get it, but so we're doing well on that. Expense analysis. Through 7 months, we've spent just over 50% of our budgeted annual expenditures, and we're 58% of the way through the year. So we're doing better than budget on expenditures. Just about all of that savings has been in the compensation line. So while that is good news, there is a little bit of a cloud in there, and that's because we lost some staff. So there's been some salaries we haven't had to pay. So the Army, oh God, one of the ads on my stream is the Army. Oh,
too bad you don't have control over that.
Oh, listen, I don't care. I'll steal back some of my own money. Some Republican candidate was advertising. They don't pick the streams. It's all by subject matter. But that's weird. Yeah, I'll take it. Listen, if the Scientologists want to I don't care. Some like really creepy MLM, I don't care. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Okay. So through 7 months, we have spent 50.5%. I gotta just tell you something funny in a minute, but let's get through this. So salaries, blah, blah, blah. And then he says the staff is doing a wonderful job doing more with less than they had requested for the year. We will catch up with that as we hire people, though. But, you know, it's not good to lose staff, but it does give us extra money for other things we might need, and perhaps, you know, advertising and incentives we need to get new staff. That's not something I'm particularly involved with. So the summary, July continued to be slightly higher than average donations. Wait, I thought we were chasing I thought we were chasing off Touchgrass all of the donors. Expenses were kept under control. Cash reserve remained strong. That's the understatement of the year. When you have a cash reserve target of 81,000 and you have 288,000, to just say it remains strong, that's an understatement. And so I haven't seen yet, because people go after Todd. And if you know Todd, he's like the sweetest guy. The way people go after him, it really just brings out the mama bear in me. I'm just like, leave Todd alone. He's the sweetest guy, but none of it bothers him. As I said, Todd is completely unflappable. I'm very flappable. Todd is not. All right. Oh, God, there's more. There's more. And wait, there's more. What do you get if you order now, Alex? You get it sooner than if you order later. Okay. The last thing, win like that one, bada bing. The last thing, this was a big project for me. This is kind of like, I know people don't read monetary reports for fun. This is like the thing that gets me all jazzed up. Like, this is super sexy to me. And I know most people read this email and like their eyes rolled back in their head and they're just like, but let me tell you, this is crap. If I had to estimate 150 hours worth of work that I had to do this. So I'm going to read it. If anyone has any questions, they can let me know. The manual I reference is attached to the email on the LNC list. It says, I have finally finished this project being internal file organization policy, with the records that are in my possession. Attached is the final manual, which will be updated periodically, with updates being reported with my quarterly secretarial report. I will be getting with each committee chair separately on how to use so that the committee's records are in one place and preserved. I will also prepare a short, I put video. I guess I need to do a video of me doing a video. It's very meta. For the LNC on how to access their personal storage folders if they wish to use them. Lastly, prior to the next quarterly meeting, I'll prepare a short video to the LNC on how to submit reports via upload. This will cut down on the glut of emails to the LNC list in the weeks leading up to an LNC meeting, and members can always access the reports through the public OneNote rather than sorting through sometimes dozens of LNC emails. My next project is to begin to write an LNC secretary's manual, which will be followed by a convention secretary's manual. It is insane that we haven't done all of this already. It is just, I can't even. But anyway, we now have a policy on preserving our records and filing our records, so that next LNC, when a committee chair comes along and says, I'm not sure what I should be putting in my report. Can I see all of the X committee reports? You could just give them a link to a folder and go, here you go. Here's everything from this committee for the past X number of years. What a concept. Okay, so yeah, I'm really happy about that. Is that it before we get to Idaho? No, there's one other thing. The next LNC meeting is set for election weekend. I know that's like unfortunate dates, but we had to work it around. Basically, Angela's going to be popping out a baby, so we had to work it around that. Even though she promised if she had to just, move for a recess so she could go in another room and give birth, she would. We're really not going to be asking her to do that. And she can't fly anywhere. She now lives in Austin. Can't fly anywhere in the 8th month. So we're having it in Austin on, that's the last probably safe weekend. The baby can pretty much come anytime after that. So we are having it in Austin, and our lunch speaker is going to be someone from RCV Colorado. Yay. And boy, the duopoly is threatened by RCV, the way they've been attacking it lately. I'm going to have to do some shows on that, particularly the screw up in Alaska. The screw up in Alaska is not RCV's fault. I know they're painting it as RCV's fault. It's not. The problem is jungle primaries. Jungle primaries suck. They need to die in a fire screaming for their mother. They are awful, and that is the way the duopoly is torpedoing RCB. They keep trying to tie the two together, and they don't go together. They're awful together. So we're going to do a whole thing on the Alaska jungle primary, most likely.
Find that.
They know what it is. I do shows like that. Wayne's trying to tell me how to do my show. He goes, define that. Mr. Harlows, this is my stream. Now some wise ass in chat is going to go, can you define jungle primary? Is that why you did that?
No, I really don't know what it is.
It's top whatever.
Oh, the top 4 thing.
Yeah, that's called a jungle primary. Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with the term.
Mm-hmm. Yep, top 4, top 5. That's jungle primary. Okay, Idaho. We talked about Idaho a little bit last time, but the resolution that, and listen, if there are questions, Richard Brown, I'm not defining a jungle primary, Richard. You're just being a pill.
I don't believe he is.
You know, anyway, we're going to talk about Idaho now. If anyone has any questions, it's funny, like, all these people have such, like, problems with some of this stuff. You know, as long I have very, like, loose rules on these streams. Anyone who has a question on any of these actions is free to come on my stream and ask me. But I'm going to share my screen at this point because I want to have on my screen the resolution that was passed. And Jason, okay, if you have questions, you can ask questions, but I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned if you have questions. That's the chair of Idaho, in case you didn't know, Wayne. Okay, the legitimate chair of Idaho. All right, here is the resolution that was passed that I'll read out loud, even though my social media things are covering it up a little bit. So the Idaho JC person says, no, he'll answer the chairs of Idaho's questions. No, ask your questions, because I know we'll see what the questions are. Because they might be questions about what the LNC can do. Hopefully they're not questions like I was thinking. Like, what was the issue here? Jason, if you ask me what the issue was here, I'm going to find Idaho on a map, which I haven't done yet, and I'm going to go there and find you. All right. Whereas the Libertarian National Committee has found no convincing evidence that the regularly scheduled annual convention of the Libertarian Party of Idaho, which took place on April 2nd, 2022, was invalid. Whereas the delegates at the April 2nd, 2022 LPID annual convention interpreted their own bylaws and recognized the convention and its business as valid. Whereas LPID leadership elections were conducted at the April 2nd, 2022 LPID annual convention. And whereas the LPID Judicial Committee determined, quote, the convention held on April 2nd, 2022 was a legitimate, valid, and effective convention of the Libertarian Party of Idaho, end quote, and that the officers and their successors, including Jason Sorensen as the interim chair, are the legitimate officers of the LPID. Resolved that the Libertarian National Committee recognizes the leadership elected at the April 2nd, 2022 LPID annual convention and their successors in the ordinary course of business as the legitimate representatives of the recognized Idaho affiliate, including interim chair Jason Sorensen. Okay, now let me take this off the screen. 1 second. Okay. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Basically, despite all of the rabbit trails, the issue was there a legitimate convention? And I do not know why my iPhone is autofocusing and now I'm all blurry. I see it. There's not a thing I can do about it. I just think touch grass and everything's good. So that was the issue. This was just a really weird situation. I'm going to give the summary of it. We'll see if there's any questions, and then we're going to move on to New Mexico, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a done issue. The LNC has made its decision, and we'll see if it gets appealed, because that's the remedy. Otherwise, this is over and done with. But a summary of it was, there was a convention. The prior board decided without a meeting and didn't invite their secretary, which was an interesting discovery, that the convention was invalid due to they kept switching their reasons. So depending on how you ask the question, you got different reasons, and sometimes you didn't get any answer at all. But it was the two reasons that kept coming up is, one, that the convention had to be held after the primary elections in Idaho, and that this was a change to their bylaws to mandate it be held in April rather than in June, and this is some kind of fatal defect in their bylaws that required a do-over. Now, I can't get in anyone's head. I don't say that anyone's being untruthful or anything like that unless I have clear and convincing evidence. But I can tell you that I do think the case, like it says, the lady doth protest too much. If the former board actually believed there was a fatal defect in their bylaws that created this huge crisis in which they had to revert to the prior board, they would have had fixing that on their new convention that they had called for August 27th. If this really was this existential crisis, it would have been on the agenda to fix. Just like Robert says, when there's a problem with your bylaws, you need to correct your bylaws as soon as is practicable. Well, if you're allegedly having a convention because of this very issue, you would think fixing that issue would be at the top. But the agenda for the do-over convention was only to elect a new board. Now, I'm using very general terms like board when Idaho has more specific positions, just because I'm trying to make this relatable to everybody. So while I'm not going to say anyone was not telling the truth, that they didn't really believe that was a reason, I'm not going there. I can't get in anyone's head. I can just say that their actions show differently. I know you can't amend bylaws without including them in the call to convention, but they called that alleged new convention. They could have noticed some bylaws amendments, but they didn't, which those actions tell me that there wasn't an existential crisis in the bylaws. Because I can tell you, if I thought there was some kind of fatal flaw in the Colorado bylaws, I would not rest until it was fixed. Let me tell you, I thought there was not a procedural existential flaw, but an existential flaw in the national bylaws, and I didn't rest until I got it fixed. And that was closing the back door to that sneaky tricks that people were trying to pull with the statement of principles. And anyone who knows me could tell you that I obsessed over that. The minute I discovered that alleged back door, I'm like, not today, Satan. Nope, that bitch is getting fixed. And guess what? I fixed the bitch. So I'm not hearing that, because if there was this existential flaw, then it would have been in the notice to convention. And I say the same thing about the second reason, which is that they didn't allegedly have a valid SCC. There could be clarifying language also, because the bylaws need to be fixed. That dealt with that. And yes, there was a valid SCC. There were... Okay, Wayne goes up and he does the sync. He knows that it sounds like the frickin' Mississippi River to me, but okay. So, that other reason that there wasn't a valid SCC. What's very interesting about that issue, and a member of Idaho, I'm not going to name who, but they might be listening, kept saying to me, I go, why don't you encourage the current board to ask the Judicial Committee to answer the question of whether or not the SCC are voting members, the officers are voting members of the SCC. And this person says the Judicial Committee already decided that. No, they didn't. There were 4 potential interpretations. There was that interpretation 1, 2, 3, 4. And I believe, if I'm remembering my numbers right, they ruled out 1 and 4 and said no matter which of these 2 interpretations we take, interpretation number 2 says they are voting members, interpretation number 4, I might have my numbers wrong, says they aren't, but could still have the administrative authority to call the convention. No matter which of these you decide upon, the convention was legitimate. They did not choose a side. The JC, and the chair of the JC is here, so tell me 1 or 3 instead of 2 or 4. And JJ says 2 or 4. So interesting. I think it was 2 or 4. So that decision was not decided because the opinion said no matter which of these 2 options, you come to the same conclusion. Now, my personal opinion is that the officers are voting members of the SCC because the bylaws say that. I know JJ disagrees. I don't know if he disagrees. So it's 1 or 3. Okay, it was 2 out of the 4. I don't know if JJ disagrees based upon Idaho state law or if he disagrees based upon bylaws interpretation, but I think the bylaws are pretty clear that the officers are voting members of the SCC. And the state law doesn't say that the SCC will be comprised only of X, 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 and X. Wayne, ooh, you just made my camera hop up and down. Whenever you're down here, you gotta walk like a baby.
I thought it was.
No, and you let loose the Mississippi River. You went upstairs.
I had to go to the bathroom.
Okay,
I guess I gotta dress the change again.
I guess I'll forgive you if you had to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to tell you to hold it. So whatever. I think this is an issue that the JC needs to address. But anyway, it didn't matter. If that member, who I'm not going to name, is listening, it's an issue that's ripe for the JC to address. They did not address it because they didn't have to, because it didn't matter, no matter which interpretation you took. And the fact is that the convention itself raised the whole issue of irregularities in the scheduling. It wasn't a matter of notice. It wasn't a matter of voting rights. It wasn't one of those things that you can't waive, and they cured it. So it's a done issue. It's a valid convention, but the bylaws need to be fixed. Now, for those who would say, and I know I've said this in other streams, but I'm just repeating it again for to make things super clear for people who are listening. For those who say that the LNC can never get involved, that is naively reductionist, because the bylaws 5.5 about the autonomy of the affiliate says, except as otherwise prescribed in these bylaws. Otherwise prescribed in these bylaws in national in order for us to fulfill our duty to an affiliate, we have to know who the affiliate is. And since an affiliate, it's like a corporation, it's its own entity, but who it's made up of, who you identify with it, in the larger context, it's the membership, but in who the LNC deals with, it's the leadership, particularly the chair. And I could say in other instances, the vice chair as well, since it's kind of the heir and the spare type thing. So we have to know who the leadership is, or we can't fulfill the rest of the bylaws. So the autonomy of the affiliate thing, it says, except as prescribed otherwise in these bylaws, that is where we are getting that authority. We can't fulfill the rest of the bylaws until we know who the affiliate is. We can't know who the affiliate is if we don't know something as basic as who the legitimate chair is. Things get a lot hairier when it's not the chair that's in dispute. When it's the vice chair, it's not quite as hairy. When you start getting further down the rabbit hole than that, then I think an argument can be made that the LNC just needs to butt out. But when you're dealing with something as fundamental as who the chair is, whether or not they had a valid annual convention, those definitely are things that the LNC has every right to look at. In fact, we look at these 50 times a year. They're just not normally in question. Each time an affiliate sends us their information about who the chair is, we don't send it back going, we can't get involved, so don't tell us who your chair is. Like, no, recognizing an annual convention is one of the things that the National Party has to do. JSOR says, can you explain why being recognized by the SOS isn't this big smoking gun? The SOS doesn't recognize anybody in the sense of, we've taken a look at all of these facts and determined you are legitimate. All the SOS does is recognize that somebody purporting to have a certain position turned in documents. That's it. They recognize that somebody who claims to be the chair of the Libertarian Party of Idaho wrote them and said, we have to do our convention over. We're just letting you know. And they're like, okay, we got this letter. We're confirming what this letter says. But they're not confirming the facts of what's in the letter because they do not do that. If you even go back to the court case, and this is going to become relevant when we talk about New Mexico, there was a huge court case over the whole Oregon issue. And you want to know what the court said over and over? Is this is a First Amendment issue. It's parties' freedom of association rights. We are not getting involved in this. And the Oregon Secretary of State, the minute the dispute came up, they asked the National Party to resolve it, saying, this is y'all's internal, like, family squabble. We don't want anything to do with it. And that's generally the point of view of a Secretary of State. But they get so many documents. Them saying, okay, well, this is what we have on file. It's kind of like the National Convention. I mean, the National Party. We don't, when we get in a notification, like say Colorado had its convention and this is the chair, and if it's a change, we don't go and examine if that's correct. We just change our records. We assume it's correct until there's a challenge. When there's a challenge, then maybe we'll look at it. Same thing with the SOS. They're, as far as I know, aren't aware yet that it was somebody operating outside of their authority that did this in Idaho. But I suspect when they find out, they're going to say, what does your National Party think? Because that's what's happened in every single one of these cases. I mean, Oregon's one that went to court, but I can tell you that Angela and I testified before. It wasn't a Secretary of State. I think it was the Elections Board, but it was some sort of associated part of the government of Delaware over the Delaware thing. Those state or apparatus give great weight to what the National Party says, because the state parties are affiliates of the National Party. It's a sub-organization. It's an affiliate. You're your own organization within the confines of your state, but you're part of a larger organization. So the SOS isn't going to adjudicate that sort of thing. So, right, JSOR says they're aware, but they told us to solve it internally. That's what they always say. They're like, And as far as the National Party is concerned, it has been solved internally. The prior board is not the Board of Idaho. The recognized affiliate is the affiliate chaired by yourself, Jay. You want to laugh, there was originally a typo, and when I typed out the resolution, I don't know if JJ told you, but just because of, you start typing something, instead of Sorensen, I put down Jorgensen. You became Jay Jorgensen for a little while. And I think JJ was talking about the national bylaws. Oh, maybe he was talking about Idaho. I don't know. The national bylaws, it would be great if we had more clarity on this. Even though I do think the rest, there's an interpretational philosophy in Roberts that says if you think there's an ambiguity or a question, the interpretation that does not render the rest of the bylaws absurd is the right one. If you have two competing interpretations and one renders the rest of the bylaws absurd, the one that's non-absurd is the correct one. And when it comes to, can we recognize when there's two competing people saying that they're chair of an affiliate, who the rightful chair is? The only interpretation that doesn't render the rest of the national bylaws absurd is the one that says we can. Now, in some of these circumstances, neither party is right. That's what happened in Oregon. The National Party, and I said this even back then, the minute Oregon happened, should have disaffiliated. That is a case of clear disaffiliation, but they didn't. So that's what led to all of that. Neither side had clean hands in that. Now, there was a side that the Oregon Libertarians overwhelmingly supported, and that is the side that was the Wes Wagner group, and that's why I ended up being on their side, because that's the side the Oregon Libertarians were on. But it should never have gotten to that. At the very beginning when this happened, the only option the LNC really had was the nuclear option. But let me tell you what was even worse about Oregon. The decision to recognize the other faction wasn't even done by the full LNC. It was done by the executive committee. At the time, I didn't realize how sketchy that was. It wasn't even a full LNC vote. It was just an executive committee vote. Ew. No. Anyway, so any other Idaho questions? I actually think Idaho was a very clean decision. Actually, I think Delaware was a very clean decision. Massachusetts was a very clean decision, because I compare everything to Oregon. And New Mexico, which we're in the middle of, I think is very, very clear. In fact, is clearer than Idaho, and I think Idaho is very clear. I think, in fact, well, Delaware, they were all clear in their own ways, but New Mexico is clear in that, well, I can't even say that. It's clear in a different way. I was running through things. Oh, well, ask your question. This is a question and answer type show, Jay. So please, throw it in chat, and if it's more appropriate to answer at the end, I'll answer at the end, but I'm just giving opportunity to talk about Idaho. So again, as far as the National Party is concerned, that's resolved. That might turn out not to be the case if there's an appeal. I am super confident we would win an appeal. I don't honestly think, oh, okay, Jay. Yeah, anything about expulsions would be best in private. I honestly don't think there will be an appeal, but the other group certainly has the right to appeal. And in my opinion, they had 30 days to do that, so from the date that resolution was passed. But I don't think they have any chance at winning an appeal, but that's just my opinion. I also thought I wasn't going to lose my appeal. I always say that. So sometimes this is a different judicial committee, but, you know, judicial committees can make bad decisions, but I'm super confident on this Idaho thing. Now, I was sent an email. I'm not going to say who it was from because I don't reveal my sources. I was sent an email of a member that had sent an email to Ms. Imhoff asking what's going on. It looks like there's two parties, and this was before the resolution passed. It looks like there's two parties here. I want to get involved. I don't know who to get involved with. And this is exactly why the LNC had to pass a resolution, because members in Idaho deserve that clarity. Even though I don't think we had to pass the resolution in order to recognize the legitimate board, I think that was the default position. Passing the resolution gives something tangible to put out to members so that they have clarity, because your average member does not care about all of this stuff. They just want to know, who do I send money to if I want to donate, and who do I volunteer with? They don't really care about any of this other stuff. They really don't. So that email, I wrote back, and then I wrote back that member afterwards, after the resolution had passed, and said, you know, I highly encourage you to get involved with a legitimate party. But they forwarded me the email that Ms. Imhoff had sent, and the email's bad. Let me find it. Let me pull up my emails here, if I can find it. If I can't find it, I'm just going to paraphrase it because I know I'll have it close, but I like to read things exactly if I can. And again, I'm not going to read any ill motives on the part of the Imhoffs, but one thing I will say here, because this is just a personal opinion that I observed at the meeting. Let me see if I can find it. Legitimate Idaho, no. I can't find it. Wait, hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay, I found it. A problem that they had at the meeting, and it seems it's a problem they are continuing to have, is they like to invoke other people's names and say so-and-so said such and such, and mischaracterize, and I'm not saying it's intentional, what that person said, or misapply it in a way that that person would object to. That happened multiple times during the meeting, and I'm glad my microphone was on mute one of those times because they invoked my name, and I was like, whoa, no, which really wouldn't have been appropriate in a meeting. So I'm glad my microphone was muted, but I was, no, don't put words in my mouth. And I'm not saying it was on purpose. But I'm going to read to you something that this member received from Ms. Imhoff, in which, again, my name is being invoked improperly. Because other people may have gotten this email, I want to explain how she is, and again, I'm not saying it's on purpose. She could have just misunderstood me, but it's wrong. So, she said, as Karen Ann Harlos explained, the term member implies voting rights. Okay, let's just stop right there. I did say that, but it was within a context. It's a person who's a member of X has voting rights with X. You can't say because someone is called a member, they're a member of everything. I'm a member of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. That doesn't mean I have voting rights in the Libertarian Party of Idaho because I'm a member of something specific. Even though the term member implies voting rights, it doesn't mean voting rights in everything. It means voting rights in what you're a member of. But she does this huge circular argument that just, when I read this, I got Forrest Whitaker eye again. I'm like, don't invoke my name. Because for some people in this party, you know, I've earned a certain reputation of being an honest interpreter of the rules and things like that. And invoking my name in this context carries weight, and I don't like this being done unless it's been run by me. If you're going to say this is her opinion, let me see it, and I can tell you if that's my opinion or not. But anyway, so that first sentence is correct. Yes, the term member implies voting rights, but that's a very incomplete statement, because then she goes on to say, this not only applies to the officers who are part of the SEC, but also the dues-paying members. No, it doesn't. I never said that in a million years. That would be like saying every registered libertarian, because okay, let me explain. In Colorado, our membership is defined by registration. So we allegedly, and I say allegedly because we see maybe 100 of these people at convention, but we allegedly have nearly 50,000 members in the LPCO, because our bylaws say if you're a registered libertarian, you're a member. What does that imply? That means you have a right to vote at convention because you are a member of the greater assembly. You're not a member of the board of directors, though. Not any one of those 50,000 people could show up at an LPCO board meeting and go, I'm a member. That implies voting rights, therefore I can vote on the board. That's the argument Jennifer Emhoff is using me to make. And it's the most ridiculous argument in the entire world. I mean, well, I'm being a bit facetious, but you know what I mean. So it says, this not only applies to the officers who are part of the SEC, I would agree with her there. It does apply to the officers, but also the dues-paying members. No, because the dues-paying members are not part of the SEC. She does this whole big circle here. It basically says, because they're members of the party, they're members of the SEC, and the SEC are members of the party. Again, it's just a big circle. She can't point to a bylaw that says that. No, dues-paying members are not members of the SEC. If they were, you've probably never had a quorum at a board meeting, because it would be 50% of all your dues-paying member in Idaho. And I don't know, I haven't been to an Idaho meeting, but I'm going to guess that you don't have over 50% of your dues-paying members show up at every SEC meeting. A wild guess, judging by the minutes that I've seen. It's like, really? Are you going to say that you haven't now had legitimate meetings in how many years? How many decades? Can you imagine? Can you imagine our quorum being 25,000? Like, it's just, don't invoke my name. If this is your argument, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you what your argument should be, but don't invoke my name, because that is not what I said. The term member implies voting rights when you are a member of X. The bylaws say that the officers are members of the SEC. So to me, it is my opinion that implies voting rights on the SEC. In fact, 3 sentences later, I think the bylaws explicitly say they have voting rights. But I'm ignoring that sentence. The very fact that they are a member means they have voting rights. You have to explicitly exclude them. You don't have to explicitly include them. That's why on the Convention Oversight Committee, I'm an ex officio member of the Convention Oversight Committee, which would mean I have voting rights. So our policy manual explicitly excludes ex officio members of the Convention Oversight Committee from having voting rights. They have to do that, otherwise we would have them. The default is if you're a member of X, you have voting rights in X. That's what member means. That's why our policy manual, go look it up, says that the chair and the party secretary are ex officio non-voting members of the Convention Oversight Committee. So they've got a really bad habit of invoking other people's names. And again, I'm not saying they're doing it in bad faith. She may legitimately believe that my statement supports her argument, but it doesn't. And if they're watching this, I'm imploring you, do not invoke other people's names. Particularly don't invoke other people's names in an area that they have some kind of qualifications in. So I've got some qualifications as a parliamentarian, so it'd be like saying, well, lawyer X says whatever, and then you give a legal argument. You're putting the authority of that person's education behind what you're saying. You're putting the authority of the fact that I at least have some qualifications as a parliamentarian behind the rest of that stuff you said, which I absolutely would disavow. So just be careful with that. Again, I'm not saying they did anything bad on purpose. Okay. Right. Well, that is exactly what she's saying. Jay said, under that logic, every member could vote at every board meeting. That's what she's saying. But I have a feeling if we applied that to another context and asked her, well, did you allow every dues-paying member to vote on whether or not the convention was invalid and there should be a rollback? She would say no. Did you have a quorum at that meeting, Jennifer, if every single dues-paying member is a member of the SEC? I bet she would say no. You can't make an argument only when it's convenient. Anyway, that whole issue was dealt with very well by the Judicial Committee. I don't need to get into that more. Okay, let's have our touch grass moment. Everyone take a deep breath, touch grass. Okay, we're going to talk about New Mexico. Here's where it's complex and it's easy. So, New Mexico had a special convention, in which they're allowed to do, in which they changed their constitution and bylaws. However, they did not give proper notice for that convention. Notice is fatal. Wayne's gonna laugh because he'll attest to this. I busted Colorado's balls over notice. And I don't know if you heard me say this in another show. It was against my interest to do that.
I know.
Because I would have loved to have seen that.
But I remember.
Yeah, well, the board that I didn't like was up for elections if I had just shut my mouth. And we would have gotten rid of them maybe sooner. I didn't like that board. But I wasn't going to let notice slip by like that. That's a bad precedent, even if I might have gotten a result that I like. So,
And I was chair at that point.
no, you weren't. This was Victoria was chair. You were not chair. This was 2020. It was in the middle of COVID. You were not chair. You did not screw up notice.
We missed notice on the convention.
It wasn't, no, Wayne.
Yeah, we had to move the date.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about right now, Wayne. I'm talking about the electronic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two different issues.
Two totally different years. We moved the date and cured it. They didn't want to move the date. So they made it an unconvention, remember? They made it an unofficial convention at that car museum.
Different thing that I was thinking about.
Exactly. There were supposed to be board elections at that convention, but there weren't because I kicked up the fuss over the notice issue. So their terms got extended till the next year because there were no elections. So their terms got extended. Okay. Now that you threw me for complete loop on that. So they had I'm sure people are like, you guys bicker as much as you and Mike. Yeah, I've got two husbands, Mike Seebeck and Wayne Harlows. Mike and I bicker.
I'm the only one who gets to sleep with you.
That's true. That's true. What is it that Mike Seebeck says? We are both happily married to other people. So they had this special constitutional convention, and they didn't give proper notice for it. Notice is fatal. Everything that happened at that convention is null and void. However, that isn't the only issue. They also excluded from vote. So let's pretend that wasn't an issue. Let's pretend notice was pristine. They excluded from participation enough members who should have been included in a large enough quantity or number to affect the results. That also is fatal. And lastly, there's a question as to, and this lastly and least importantly, there's a question over whether or not they were authorized to have electronic conventions. They did it all online. Their bylaws do not make provision for electronic conventions. However, New Mexico is one of the most regressive states when it comes to like still wanting COVID to be a thing. And their governor keeps extending all the emergency orders. They're still under COVID emergency orders in New Mexico. It is insane. And allegedly, one of these emergency orders is allowing electronic meetings for organizations. However, it's not that clear. If you try to untangle it, but that's the least important though. But those are the 3 points. Any one of those, if they're true, you don't need all 3 of them to be true. Any one of them, if they are true, would invalidate the convention. So, meaning that, because all that happened at the convention was constitution and bylaws changes, meaning that none of those changes were valid and it reverts back. So there are no elections at stake. That goes, well, there is in the future, but there were no elections at that convention. So it reverts back to the prior constitution and bylaws. And apparently we have a Republican in chat who wants to tell us, well, hello, we won't hold it against you. None of us are perfect. Okay, so that's all that means. Now, when I said elections weren't at stake, there were no elections at this invalid convention. But elections are at stake in that one of the changes that they made was extending the terms of their officers. So next convention, they're not going to be allowed to vote for all new officers because at this illegal convention, they extended the terms. That's where member rights are getting impacted. So this isn't majoring on the minors. This isn't, okay, guys, dumb changes got passed. Who cares? Move on. Don't cause a fight over it. No, there's a serious impact to member rights here that will come to a head at the March convention. There's also potentially other issues of member rights that could come up between here and then, depending upon what actions the boards take, because they change their parliamentary authority. So there could be rules that differ. They changed it to the American Institute of the Standard Code of the American Institute of Parliamentarians rather than Robert's Rules of Order. It's a fairly comprehensive parliamentary authority, but it differs in several ways. So there could be some issue there, but we don't know for sure that will happen. What we do know for sure is come March, their members are going to be denied voting for officers. That's the really big issue. And some of the other changes they made, frankly, are good, but that doesn't matter. And the reason it's invalid isn't that the changes are bad. The reason it's invalid is because of those 3 reasons. Notice, excluding enough voting members that could have affected the results, and authorization to have an electronic convention. All right, so we sent a letter to the chair of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico, actually to the entire board, saying that we requested, we laid out to them the issues and requested that by the end of August, that they acknowledge that it was an invalid convention and that the operative constitution and bylaws is the one that was in effect prior to that convention. We got a response. It wasn't a good response, but we got a response. And I'm going to deal with that response today. Me dealing with that response is not, just like nothing I said here today, is not the official position of the LNC. Nothing is the official position of the LNC unless the LNC votes on it. This is my personal opinion. Well, some things the LNC doesn't vote on. So either the chair decides on the things that the chair has the authority to decide on their own, or the LNC votes. Me rambling on Twitch is not the official position of the LNC. So let's get that clear. I'm going to say my opinion here, but if you see something officially come out from the LNC, that means I got overruled in some way or somebody changed my mind. I do not and cannot speak for the entire LNC. That whole disclaimer, trigger warning, whatever, don't remove me, bro. All that being said, I'm 100% confident in what I'm about to say because I'm always right. No, just joking.
Not so much.
On this, I'm right. So we're going to pull up their response, JJ, because it's public on the website. And apparently Chris Lucchini's really proud of this response, and it's a terrible response. It really is. It's just not a good response. But let's get some things out of the way first. First, I've said this before, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. No one wants to disaffiliate New Mexico. That keeps being said, and it's not the truth. That doesn't mean we won't if we have to. Like, that goes for any party, though. Like, if some state party starts abusing its members and the only option that's left is to disaffiliate, it is cowardly leaders that won't do that. So disaffiliation is not off the table, but it's not something anyone wants to do. It would be an absolute last resort. There is no one, least of all me, eager to disaffiliate anyone, including New Mexico. Yes, it is very widely known that I am not a fan of Mr. Lucchini. However, this is not personal. Lucchini happens to be the chair right now, but ultimately the party is its members, and I have absolutely nothing against the members of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico and do not wish to cause them any difficulties. But this needs to be resolved and protect member rights. It's nothing at all personal, and in fact, in those bylaw changes, the one person whose term did not get extended is the chair. I have a feeling that Chris doesn't want to be chair of New Mexico anymore. Maybe he's going to rerun. I don't know. Maybe he excluded himself from that to try to be a little hands off, like, I wrote these changes, I don't want to write a change in which I'm giving myself additional power. That's admirable if that's what it was. So none of this is personal, though. Let's get right off the bat. It's no secret that I am not BFF with Mr. Lucchini, but this isn't about that. So, now that that's said, the second thing, this is related to the question of, well, what gives you even the authority to take a look at whether they passed their bylaws properly? Because how do you determine in an affiliate dispute if you have two competing chairs, which I've already argued, and the National JC has already it's very clear. Alicia Matson's written great opinions on this, that we have to be able to determine who the chair is. Not only do we have to be able to determine that, the Idaho JC ran into this. The National JC has to be able to determine if someone's the rightful chair. Why? Because certain appeal rights depend upon whether or not you are the rightful leader of an affiliate. So, for instance, if you're going to be arguing that you are constructively disaffiliated, or if you have competing claims of disaffiliation like there was in Delaware, the JC has to be able to determine who the heck the affiliate is. How do you determine who the affiliate is? You look at their bylaws. So absolutely corollary to the fact that we have the right to say, hey, was this like a legitimate chair? We have to be able to know what the affiliate bylaws are. Normally, when the affiliate notifies us there was a change, just like when they notify us there's a change in the chair, we just accept it. Unless somebody challenges it and says, no, this was not done legitimately, then we get to look at it. That's what happened here. New Mexico members complained. I wasn't just sitting around, one day just twiddling my thumbs going, how can I figure out what New Mexico did wrong? I bet you, and I'm not saying this to rag on New Mexico because this is true in Colorado, it's probably true in every single state affiliate, that if I attended every single state affiliate meeting in this country, I bet you I could find something wrong at every single meeting. And that goes for my own state. So this isn't just a rag. So I'm not sitting around looking for something to rag on New Mexico for. I got enough things to do. But members complained. We took a look at it. And we have every right to do that because it's absolutely corollary to the right to be able to determine who the leadership is. Also, I know that some people in the party disagree with this interpretation, And when I've given this interpretation, I have said, it's my interpretation. I have no authority to make an authoritative interpretation on behalf of the LNC. But since then, the chair has concurred with my interpretation. And until a point of order is raised and she's appealed, that's the interpretation, I'm going to tell you what it is, that the LNC is operating under. There's a bylaw that says when someone affiliates, they have to ratify the statement of principles and they have to send in a copy of their constitution and bylaws to the party secretary. The argument is that a continuing duty, or does that have to only be done once at the time of affiliation? Those two things are in the same sentence. And my interpretation is it's a continuing duty, that each time the bylaws and constitution change, the affiliate needs to send it into the secretary. There's multiple reasons for that. One of it is so that we can be able to take a look at things to determine when there's things like a chair dispute. Now remember, when these bylaws were written, the internet didn't exist, so we wouldn't be able to just go to the affiliate website and look at what was on there. Now, we don't bust people's humps about not sending them in. I just, every so often, go to 50+1 websites and download their current documents. But when the bylaws were originally written, it had to be actually mailed in. And I do believe that's a continuing duty. Why? Because in the same sentence, it mentions the ratification of the statement of principles. Is there anyone here who would argue that there isn't a continuing duty to uphold the statement of principles? So could an affiliate ratify the statement of principles at the time of affiliation and then repudiate it the next year? Or is that a continuing duty? Would repudiation of the statement of principles be cause for disaffiliation? Why? If they don't have a continuing duty. They do. Therefore, they have a continuing duty to send in the bylaws. Angela has agreed with me on that interpretation. Her ruling on this has not been appealed. There's been no challenge. So that is now, at least as far as this LNC is concerned, the official interpretation, not just my personal interpretation. But just to be clear, it was my personal one before. The chair just happened to agree with me. Anyway, so they need to send in their bylaws. So there's our authority to take a look at it. We have to know what rules they are operating under, and so does our judicial committee, in order to adjudicate any kind of disputes that come up in issues of disaffiliation, for one. Another issue that comes up is in delegate allocations. If you notice, if you go look at our rules for delegates, it says that the credentials committee chair has to honor what the affiliate says in their bylaws about who their delegation chair will be, what their substitution procedures are, which means we have to know what their bylaws are. What if there was a question one year about those sections of the bylaws? Would we not be able to look at it? That is just absolutely absurd. All right. So now we got to the authority. Now let's deal with, we're going to pull up the New Mexico website and we're going to look at Mr. Lucchini's response and we're going to respond to it, saying once again, this is not the official response of the LNC. Angela will be doing that. I got to find where it's at on the website. I know it is here because I was given a link to it, but I didn't go to it directly. I don't think it's on the front page. Okay, I'm going to have to go to it from the email I was sent. Just give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull this up. It's National Politics, American 1812. I'm the secretary of the Libertarian National Committee. I'm originally from Florida. Where are you from in Florida? I'm originally from Boynton Beach. I'm now in Colorado, but I lived in Boynton. All right, let me pull up this letter. I don't even, he's from San Ann. Where is San Ann, Florida? Is that West Coast or Gulf? North of Tampa. Okay, I'm not as familiar with the West Coast. All right, I've never even heard of it. There's so many towns in Florida. All right, so here's Mr. Lucchini. So Pasco County, gotcha. Here's Mr. Lucchini's letter. And I need to I'm going to read this aloud. So, dated August 17th to the LNC. In response to the letter from the LNC, I'm going to abbreviate it. It says Libertarian National Committee, but I'm not going to say that each time. I'm just going to say LNC. Jay's going to have a question for you at the end. He's just wanted me to let you know. Okay. Dated August 9th, 2022. This notice is to inform, he forgot, the LNC Inc. Ooh, drive in the dagger, why don't you? The LNC Inc. that the Libertarian Party of New Mexico, Inc. He didn't put Inc. there, but they're incorporated. Why would he put LNC Inc. and not put Libertarian Party of New Mexico, Inc.? Is an independent organization. No, you're not. You're an affiliate. You're not an independent organization. Sorry. And state political party, that's true, operating as an entity in the state of New Mexico. And in other news, water is wet. Okay. The Libertarian Party of New Mexico does not recognize any actions, directives, orders, commands, rulings. Oh, I like that list. He should have added in like the omissions plank. Machinations, you know? He should have that would have been hilarious. Wouldn't that have been?
I'm sure you didn't think of that.
If he quoted the omissions plank, I would have been like troll points. Okay, he needed to put in machinations there. Okay, commands, rulings, or any other interference with the internal operations of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico by the LNC or any of its affiliated committees. Why you added that? You're an affiliated... Okay, whatever. Yeah, we are Libertarians, American 1812. Again, I'm the National Party Secretary. The Libertarian Party of New Mexico is asserting legal associational rights in executing the operations of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico under the direction of, he forgot another he really needed to proofread this letter, Libertarian Party of New Mexico. And don't say that. Like, why don't you at the beginning, if you're going to say, okay, this is a legal thing, just from pleadings, if you're going to be repeating the same long-ass phrase a million times, abbreviate it at the beginning, and then you can just use the abbreviation. So the first time you say Libertarian Party of New Mexico, put paren LPNM. That way you can just put LPNM throughout the rest of the letter instead of repeating this long-ass phrase a million times. I'm going to say LPNM. Under the direction of LPNM leadership and bylaws. But it wasn't under your bylaws. That is the problem. And he should have said Constitution and bylaws, because they don't just have bylaws. They have one document that's called Constitution and bylaws. That's being nitpicky. But anyway, JJ is right. They violated their own associational rights because they didn't conduct their business in accordance with their bylaws. This is like, can the question be begged any harder? Any actions taken by the LNC that interfere with the autonomy and independence of the LPNM are not recognized and are not legitimate. Ipsa dixit. That's all I can say to that. By attempting to interfere with the operations of the LPNM, the LNC has violated its own bylaws, Article 5, Section 5. I already dealt with that, but we'll read it again. The autonomy of the affiliate and sub-affiliate parties shall not be abridged by the National Committee or any other committee of the party except as provided by these bylaws. We have to know what your foundational documents are and who your leadership is. That does not violate our bylaws. In addition to illegitimately attempting to directing the affairs, you really needed to proofread this letter, dude. Oh my God, this is like the 4th typo. Let me give you a hint, because I have a lot of typos in my crap a lot of times. When you're writing a letter that's probably going to be read out on a live stream, like you knew I would, this is a hint to everybody. Somebody taught me this and it's been a lifesaver. You know what you're trying to write, so when you read your own writing, you don't see your typos because your brain is reading it in your head what you intended to say, not what it actually says. So what you do, you can do it on a Windows machine, I'm sure too, but on a Mac, it's really easy. You highlight your entire thing, right-click, hit Convert to Voice, and have the computer read the letter back out aloud to you. Because when you're hearing it, you'll hear the typos. Because your brain won't trick you. And if you had someone read this aloud, when I first read this, when I wasn't reading it out loud, I didn't notice any of these typos. But when I'm reading it out loud, I'm like, you're missing a the, So this isn't really, I do the same thing, but this really needed to be proofread. In addition to illegitimately attempting to directing, the affairs of the LPNM, the LNC chair's letter contains a number of misstatements. No, it doesn't. And that's what we're going to deal with here. That have been addressed at, and he gives a link. And we're going to go through the link because he claims to go point by point through those 3 problems. Remember the 3 problems. Notice, excluding members who had the right to vote in sufficient number to affect the results, and electronic meetings. He claims to address all 3 of these points. He does not. Guess what he spends the most time on? Point number 3, the weakest of the 3 points. That speaks volumes. The LPNM demands, I do like the guts there, demands that the LNC rescind the letter from the LNC. He forgot another the. This is not well written. But you did put the comma in the right place because that is 2 independent clauses attached by an and. So I'm really, I like people who use commas correctly. And the motion it was based on within 10 days of the receipt of this letter. Okay, so there's a counter demand now. Chris Lucchini, Chair, LPNM. All right, so let's look at this alleged point by point. Because this is what members really need to understand. So basically he said, he didn't forget the date. The date's up at the top, August 17th. But let me summarize this letter in a too long, didn't read. Nuh-uh, take it back. In a bunch of typo thing, that's basically what he said is, nuh-uh, take it back. All right, so let's see what the point by point is. And he doesn't link to this on the front page, which is interesting. So we have a whole subpage entitled LNC. Isn't that interesting? But it's not linked to. This must have gone out in an email to members because LPNM members have written me about this. So he posted the letter publicly, and he has it in PDF form here. Here's a point-by-point response, and then he has a copy of our letter. Now, I'm going to say I really like this page because it's complete. I actually think this was really nicely done. I'm giving him a compliment. That if you're having some kind of dispute, keep your members informed and include all of the... Well, this is almost complete. He didn't include the summary of the violations that I wrote for the LNC. He should have included that, which was complete. So, all right, instead of giving him 100% on this page, I'm going to give him an 85. He did actually send the letter too. Angela got it. So let's look at this point-by-point response, because if he had posted my summary, the LPNM members would have seen immediately that his point-by-point response is not a point-by-point response, because there's like some outright misrepresentations in here. Okay, so here's the alleged point-by-point response. It says, the August 9th, 2022 letter lists 4 purported reasons. Was there... I think there were 3 and there were sub-points under them, but maybe there were 4, and I'm just forgetting one because I'm dealing with Idaho, but we're going to go through this. 4 purported reasons that the LPNM July 12th Constitutional Convention was invalid. Notwithstanding that the LNC, as per National Bylaws, Article 5, Section 5, has no power to interfere, that's wrong. We already dealt with that. The points made in the chair's letter are false. No, they are not. The points made here are false, with the potential exception of the electronic meeting thing. He spent the most time on that. I'm going to deal with it last. I'm going to deal with the most important things. Now remember, of those 3 points I mentioned earlier, all it takes is for one of them to be true and the convention is invalid. I'm going to deal with the 3 points. He breaks them out into 4 here. I think one is subsumed into the other. But here's the 3 points again. He didn't give proper notice. Members were excluded in sufficient number to affect the results. And 3, electronic conventions aren't authorized. any one of those three, they are severable. They don't stand or fall together. Okay, first point. Proper notice was given. It's just an assertion, but here he goes. And you'll see, anyone who's familiar with how his notice was defective will see that every assertion he makes here about notice, we never challenged. Everything he says here about notice is true. He didn't deal with any of the defects. When you have defective notice, it doesn't mean every single thing was wrong. It just means you didn't follow it the way you were supposed to. It doesn't mean you didn't do anything right. Like, for instance, in the Colorado thing, where we had defective notice, one of the requirements is that it be posted on the website. Well, it was posted correctly on the website. So if they were to come back at me and go, we gave proper notice, we posted it on the website, would completely ignore the fact that they had to do it 45 days before the convention. That was the issue. Didn't mean you did everything wrong. So everything he says here, well, I'm not going to say everything, because I think just one thing I'm going to challenge. But nearly everything he says in this paragraph is correct. And absolutely beside the point, because that isn't the issue. But he says proper notice was given. He says the Wayback Machine will verify that the website notice was posted around 39 days prior to the convention. Nobody disputed that. In fact, in the summary letter that I did to the LNC, I said this. As the National Party hosts our webpage, they should have been aware of this fact with trivial levels of effort. I don't know what hosting. Chris is a tech guy. I think he just said this to like try to make us seem stupid, or like, we don't have like edit logs of your website, dude. But it doesn't matter. This is a completely throwaway statement. As far as I know, we don't have edit logs. I'm not part of the CRM project, so maybe I'm talking out my rear, but it's nothing we've ever looked at. It doesn't matter. We didn't challenge that you didn't post something purporting to be notice to your website at least 30 days prior. You did. It wasn't proper notice that you posted, but you did post something purporting to be notice in time. Nobody disputes this. These are all undisputed facts, and he's acting like it's a gotcha. In addition, email was sent to voting members on the same day as the website notice went up, as well as on the 12th of June. Email notice was sent, notice we said voting members. It's supposed to be sent to all voting members, whether or not they were qualified to vote at this convention, or dues-paying members, excuse me. But he's begging the question here because he defined voting members incorrectly. So email was not sent to all voting members because he improperly excluded some voting members. But you notice, if you just scan ahead, he never deals with this. He halfway deals with it. But anyway, email was sent to voting members on the same day as the website. There are voting members who did not get notice. Okay. As well as on the 12th of June. Same people did not get notice. Multiple emails were sent to voting members and others in the weeks leading up to the convention. A newspaper notice of the meeting was published June 6, 2022 in the Albuquerque Journal. No one ever disputed about the newspaper notice. So he's just like throwing this stuff at the wall that was not in dispute. So now let's talk about how proper notice was not given. Their bylaws say certain wording that has to be included in their notice that's posted on the website. One of them is a statement about qualifications to vote. That statement was not included on the website. Notice is supposed to be sent to all members. It wasn't sent to all members. It was sent to a certain subsection of members that he defined incorrectly. Also, the notice is supposed to state the public place where the meeting is going to be held. If, in fact, electronic conventions are allowed, because their bylaws say their conventions are open to the public, not just open to members, but open to the public. Therefore, the notice is supposed to say the public place. It didn't. It said email the executive committee and we'll send you a link. And people did ask for a link and they didn't get it 30 days ahead of time, which is supposed to be included in the notice 30 days ahead of time. So it was defective notice on the website. I'm going to be pulling up my summary again too, because I don't want to forget each of these points because I'm going from memory right now. And then it says the details of the proposed changes were mailed to all voting members on June 20th. No, there were legitimate voting members, but he's defining voting members wrong on who did not get it until like the day before the convention, and they were still excluded from participating in the convention. And then lastly, you gotta stop that because that's distracting me badly. Thank you. It goes, as per the ruling of the parliamentary, you needed to proofread this, dude. Members that had not been paid in full 30 days prior to the meeting were properly excluded. To do otherwise would have been a violation of our bylaws. That was never in dispute. My summary said that was proper. So he's arguing here that we falsely stated something, but that was never in dispute. He is absolutely correct that you had to be paid in full 30 days prior to the meeting. The ending date, the final date of when you had to be paid by was never in dispute. What's in dispute is the beginning date. Between which date and which date did you have to have your dues paid by? The ending date's not in dispute. It's the beginning date that's in dispute. He completely ignored that. We're going to get to that. We're gonna deal with the electronic meetings last. So let me pull up my summary. And what I want to do, because I need to go into some folders here, I want to just go to my camera here for a second and let me find where I put that. 1 second. I'm pretty sure I know where I have that. Because I just did this new filing system and I know it, but I'm not like super fast at it because it's just created. So even right there, it's under this folder, then this folder, 2022 LPNM issue. There it is. Okay, LPNM memo. Okay, so now we are going to look at, which was publicly posted. He's very well aware of this opinion. And now that when you see the points that were stated as support, you'll see how his alleged point-by-point response is nothing of the sort, like not even remotely close. All right, so here is the summary that I sent to the LNC. And it has appendices. So remember where he insinuated that we didn't even bother to look at the Wayback Machine. Look at my summary. Here's appendices. Appendix E, screenshot of the front page of the LPNM dated whatever, retrieved from the Wayback Machine. Exhibit F, Wayback Machine. How could he... So he blatantly misrepresented that we didn't even check the Wayback Machine, when in the summary, I have screenshots of me checking the Wayback Machine. Okay. Alrighty. And here are the reasons. Reason that the convention, and notice it says, summary conclusion, the LPNM Constitutional Convention held July 12th is null and void, and the LPNM Constitution and bylaws adopted March 27th, 2021 are still in full force and effect for the following reasons, any one of which would be sufficient to nullify the subject convention. Number 1, the convention was not properly noticed as per the LPNM Constitution and bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order. Number 2, electronic conventions are not authorized by the LPNM Constitution and bylaws. But I said, caveat, see footnote. Let's read the footnote. See Appendix H for research conducted by Richard Brown. It appears there is no emergency order in effect from the state of New Mexico that would override the lack of authorization in the LPNM Constitution and bylaws. The burden of proof to disregard this lack of authority in the governing documents would be upon the governing board of the LPNM. So we conceded right off the bat that we weren't sure about this one, because try following New Mexico's website on their orders. It's crazy. Yeah, see, I only did 3 reasons. I don't know where he got 4 from. That was kind of strange. I think he was trying to make his case seem a little stronger. Number 3, members were improperly excluded from voting as a result of the prior March 5th, 2022 annual convention being null and void due to lack of proper notice. Yes, if you're noticing a pattern here, this is the 3rd convention in a row that they've had this year that were invalid due to improper notice. He tried to have one on January 6th. He's admitted that notice was defective. They had an annual convention on March 5th. That one was defective. And now let me use one of Chris Lucchini's own arguments. A simple search of the Wayback Machine, Mr. Lucchini, would show that you did not post any kind of notice on your website until about 22 days prior to the convention, when your bylaws require 30. I really wouldn't have brought up the Wayback Machine if I were you. Okay. And members were in a large enough number to make a difference. All right. Okay. Related issues. All right, and then we go into, and this is allegedly what he addressed point by point. So, point number 1, the July 12th convention was not properly noticed. And I cite the Constitution, and it says, the secretary shall notify each caucus member, not each caucus member entitled to vote at a convention, each caucus member. They use the word caucus in New Mexico the way other state parties will use dues payer. So when you see me say the word caucus, don't think like Radical Caucus, Mises Caucus. What it means in New Mexico is a dues paying member. So every single member was supposed to be notified. He did not do that. He only notified people that he thought were qualified to vote at that convention. You could be a dues payer and not be qualified to vote. We're going to talk about that, but he did not notify each caucus member of the date, time, and public place. The public place was not in the notice, and shall cause to be published on the LPNM webpage notice of state conventions at least 30 days prior, while something purporting to be noticed was published 30 days prior to the date of the convention provided. But it didn't have the public place, so that's one defect. But it goes on to say, this notice shall include the information that all caucus members must be in good standing 30 days prior to the convention. That notice did not include that information. Therefore, it's a defective notice pursuant to their own bylaws. He did not address any of this, yet claims a point-by-point rebuttal. I go on to say there are at least 2 requirements for proper notice. Notification to each caucus member, publication to the website to include where the convention will publicly take place, and the information that you must have be a member in good standing 30 days. So he didn't address any of this. And I said, look, I acknowledge this. His big gotcha, a simple search of the Wayback Machine would show we had a notice posted. Right in my summary, the notice was published to the website over 30 days prior to July 12th. See appendices E and F, which are screenshots of the Wayback Machine. However, this notice did not contain the language required by the Constitution and bylaws, and thus the convention was not properly noticed under the party's own governing rules and is invalid. He didn't address any of this. And then I go on to say, further, a special convention would fall under the rules of a special meeting under Roberts, and only the items listed in the call of the meeting could be considered. Some members were notified of the amendments to be considered, and others were not. The notice posted on the website did not give that information, and all notices are required to give that information. So that's another defect. So he didn't address any of it. You notice nowhere in here is it alleged anything about publishing to a newspaper? And he did that as a big gotcha. And we did publish it to a newspaper. That's nowhere mentioned. Because that's not required by their bylaws. That was required by state law. And we didn't get into state law. We were just dealing with their bylaws here. Okay. Point number 2, electronic conventions are not authorized. We're going to deal with that last. That one's a little questionable. I'll give the summary of that last. Because Lucchini might be right on this one. A lawyer's really going to need to look at this if it gets this far. But I do want to note this. Even if an electronic meeting were allowed, this was not a valid participatory meeting, and the convention chair was well aware of this fact, as well as other issues of legality. And I give a link to the convention, and there's a footnote. The chair and executive committee were well aware of numerous problems with the validity of the special convention, as is evidenced by the hot mic during the hastily convened executive session during the convention. See specifically the comments of Mr. Lucchini, and I give timestamps in which he said, there are a bunch of people who qualified who cannot get in, and that's a quote. And here's another quote, we are absolutely fucked if we pass this. That's a direct quote from Mr. Lucchini, who knew he didn't know his mic was on, and we are so fucked. Those are quotes from Mr. Lucchini. Mr. Lucchini, decorum, dear sir. Thought you weren't allowed to say those words. My virgin ears. Okay, so anyway. All right. And point 3, members were improperly excluded from voting as a result of the prior March 5th, 2022 annual convention being null and void. All right. And notice, first sentence, I agree, and I cite Lucchini's own parliamentarian, that there is a requirement that a caucus member must be fully paid in yearly dues within 30 days of any convention. And he acted like in his point-by-point rebuttal that we disagreed on this. We don't. We agree on this. However, it's the starting point that's in question. Now I'm going to come back because you can see there was a lot of detail. He claims a point-by-point response. He didn't give a point-by-point response. You have to be paid up 30 days before a convention, and it must be paid in the time period from adjournment of the last prior convention. If their March convention was valid, that means yearly dues would have had to have been paid between March 5th and July 12th. But their March, so there would have been a very small group of people qualified to vote. It would have been life members and people who were monthly dues payers who just decided to pay it all in the first couple months. However, their March convention was not valid. So you then go back to the previous 12 months, or if less than 12 months, if there was another convention. There wasn't. So the valid voting members were people who had their dues paid in full from July 12th, 2021 to July 12th, 2022, or maybe the 11th. It might be shifting a day depending on how we're going to define before. But you can see it's a much larger body of people that were entitled to vote. He did not give them notice, even though they were dues payers, and they weren't allowed to vote. And that is of a sufficient number to affect the results. There were only 20 people or less at this convention. And bylaws and constitution changes require 2/3. It takes a very small number of people to affect that result. There definitely were that many people who did not get notice, who, so their absentee rights were completely violated. This is not complicated. And here's the sad thing with Lucchini and his, oh, I demand that you rescind this. No, we're absolutely right. Nothing is going to be rescinded. You submitted fraudulent documents to the Secretary of State. That is the fact. But here's the sad thing. It's easy to fix all this. Just call a valid convention. And if you're right about being able to have online ones, it won't even cost you anything. you can fix this with all of your changes. There's only a couple reasons that I can think of, though I'm sure there's more. I really don't want to get into motives as to why you wouldn't do it. One, you're just being stubborn. And I think that's really what it is, because I know Chris, and he's stubborn. And I think that's what it is. But the other reason could be you don't think if you gave all the valid voting members notice that you had actually passed these things. Those are the only two reasons I can think of. Because the fix is laughably easy. Just call a valid convention. Oh, yeah, you're bumping my camera, Wayne. You gotta...
Sorry.
Kitten feet. Wait, don't go away. Where are you going?
I gotta go pee again.
Are you coming back? Because Jay has a question for you.
Well, give me Jay's question now, because I gotta go pee.
Okay, Wayne wants to go. So, Jay, let me know what your question is, and we'll wrap up the New Mexico thing. So I'll keep talking until you give your question, and then whatever, if Jay's still listening after all this New Mexico rambling. So it's really, really clear that they didn't have a valid constitution and bylaws. And it's also really, really clear that if they don't clear this up by either reverting to their prior one or holding a valid convention, that they are absolutely going to be violating their members' rights come their next convention, because they will not allow them to vote for a new board. Ann Lucchini committed fraud upon the Secretary of State by submitting invalid documents and purporting them to be valid documents. Oh, that's not an easy question, Jay. Wayne might need to do a stream on my channel. His question you're not going to be able to answer easily.
What would it be?
What is your best advice for a first-time chair? So just give a couple points.
Listen to all the previous board members that can give you advice. And don't be too rash about your own opinions, because they may not be well-founded.
Okay, because I don't know if the mic picked him up. He said, listen to people who've had previous experience. So other board members who may have more experience, because they might know something you don't know. And don't be super rash about your own opinions, because they might be proven wrong. And he has a second question.
Okay.
Did you ever shut the door?
I shut the door all the time. But maybe not enough.
Okay, that was it. Yeah. And Jay said it's good advice because Dan Carlin's on their board. We know Dan. Wayne knows Dan. I know Dan. We had lunch with him at is it Little America? Is that what it's called? That resort?
Yeah.
At Little
Wyoming.
America.
Yeah.
With him and Martin Buchanan of Wyoming. I think Dan was in Wyoming at that time too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did he just move to
I think
Idaho?
so.
Yeah, Dan is great. So Jay said that was good advice, particularly since they got Dan on there, who's been around he's an OG.
Take advantage of the experience of people that have lived before you or experienced before you.
All right, okay, now you can go pee. Just be sure to shut.
Better now.
Be sure to shut the basement door. Kitten feet. Okay. So yeah. So I don't know what Angela's response is going to be. You know, I don't know where it's going from here. I've given you my opinion. I could tell you one thing that's not going to happen, though. The LNC ain't rescinding that letter. Now, of course, do I have a crystal ball? And if a motion to rescind came up, can I absolutely say with 100% certainty that it wouldn't pass? No, because monkeys might fly out of my butt. But am I 99.9999999% sure it wouldn't pass? Yeah, because we're absolutely right here. This isn't even remotely questionable. So now I want to deal with, though Richard Brown could probably deal with this a lot better than me, the whole issue of whether or not they were authorized to have special meetings. Electronic meetings. Their emergency orders of the governor are a hot mess. And Chris links to the most recent one, which says vaguely certain public health measures are all extended for a certain period of time. Okay, let's actually pull up what he had here. Okay, so this was August. Wait, this is August 12th. His convention was July. I didn't even notice this. That it wasn't valid on the date. Is that what you were trying to tell me? Who was trying to tell me that? This doesn't, now I'm not even going to get into this because this doesn't deal with anything, because this wasn't, his convention was in July. This is an August order. Oh my God. So on August, it looks like, so the purpose of this amended public health emergency order is to provide current guidance and clarify all public health orders remaining in effect. Okay. At first I was ready to give him this point. I'm not ready to give him this point anymore. For one thing, that order came a full month after your convention. Number two, that order is an extension of orders that are currently in effect. There was no order that I could find or Richard could find currently in effect allowing electronic meetings. There were orders allowing electronic meetings that expired, I think in April. So they weren't currently in effect. They all had definite expiration dates. So I do not think he has shown that electronic meetings were authorized. And not only do his bylaws not authorize electronic meetings, they are incorporated as a nonprofit in New Mexico, and nonprofit law in New Mexico explicitly states that member meetings, unless stated in the bylaws, cannot be electronic. So I don't think he met his burden of proof here either. I didn't notice that wasn't dated till August 12th. Now, there still could be something floating out there in the hot mess that is the New Mexico government that did authorize electronic conventions. That's the weakest of the 3 points. But the burden of proof is on him, and he has not met the burden of proof. So that's what's going on with New Mexico. And I realize it's going to take a lot of member education to understand what's going on here. JJ says, I think there's a feeling on the LNC to disaffiliate. I don't know about that. I can tell you this LNC member doesn't have that feeling. I don't have that feeling at all. And you know that. You know I've been very... what's the stock terms? I keep forgetting what's bullish and what's bearish. What's the one that you're raring to go? And what's the one that you're not? Is bear the one that you're not? Or is bull the one that, like, whatever. Bear or bull, I don't know whatever one. I'm one of those. I'm not. Like, there's no feeling in this person. So it seems like there's a difference between New Mexico and Idaho regarding burden of proof on whether the convention was valid. Because in Idaho, the issue was who can set the date. It wasn't an issue in which members' rights were being violated. So it wasn't necessarily a fatal flaw. Proper notice is a fatal flaw. And excluding members who otherwise should have a right to vote is a fatal flaw. There are certain things that are a continuing breach that can't be cured through ratification. And that's the difference. Yes, there is still a state chairs list. It's a mailing list. It's a Google group that all the state chairs can post to. And Chris Lucchini sent a copy of his response to the LNC to the state chairs group. So he's trying to, one reason I'm educating people on all the issues going on here, to make sure people are really clear that this isn't like some kind of witch hunt. It's very, very clear that that convention was invalid. And we got a lot of letters from New Mexico members asking us to intervene. This wasn't, this isn't something we sought out on our own. We got a lot of letters. In fact, we've gotten requests from New Mexico members to disaffiliate them. But I'm not eager for that. There are people, members in New Mexico, though, that want to be disaffiliated. And that's not where I'm at. And it's a very, very high threshold. 3/4 of the entire LNC, 13 votes. I don't know. I mean, it's not off the table. It's certainly not off the table, but it's not something I want to do. It would have to be an absolute last resort, and that is what disaffiliation should be. It's a nuclear option. It should be last resort. Nobody should be eager for that. I'm not talking about the members there who might feel real slighted. I'm not trying to criticize them. I meant on the LNC. No one on the LNC should ever be eager to disaffiliate anybody. That's no bueno. No bueno. I was saying no bueno to somebody earlier today in text. And for some reason, my iPhone kept changing it to no Bruno. I'm like, I don't know who this Bruno guy is, but no Bruno and no bueno. Alrighty, so I think that's all I have. I'm giving a few moments to see if there's any other questions. This is one of my longer shows. I've been getting really good at just doing like half hour, 45 minutes. But this is a 2-hour one because there was a lot to cover. There wasn't a lot of subject matters, but the subject matters were thick. They were thick boys. So, yeah. And I see I'm opposite. Here we go. Yeah, everyone's used to my little running thingy guy. You like him? He's my pet. I love him. I love that little guy. Oh my goodness. Alrighty, everyone. So tomorrow my radio show will be up if I record it right after this, which I'm supposed to do. But there will not be an evening stream because the Libertarian Party of Douglas County, we're all Colorado, like outdoorsy here. We're hosting a hike to a abandoned quartz quarry, and we're doing it in the evening. It's only a half mile off of the pass road, but it's a Georgia Pass, Dakin Pass. I can't remember what pass it is, but it's not a marked trail, so you kind of got to boondock it. But it's only a half a mile in. It's this, just if you know what I can't really describe a quartz quarry. So it's like this big hole with sheer rock walls that still have quartz veins, because quartz goes in veins like gold does, and the bottom of it's full of water. But from what Wayne told me, at night, if you go, that's why we're going in the evening, and there's a whole little like campsite set up there, that if you have a campfire, and the fire restrictions have been lifted in Colorado, that's why we waited till now, that if you have flashlights or any kind of light at night, and the light glints off of the quartz and it just like lights up. So I'm so eager to see that. So that'll be fun. So we're going to have a party hosted by the Libertarian Party of Douglas County at the abandoned quartz quarry. So I will not be streaming tomorrow night. I don't know if we're doing Cultivar ONR on Sunday or not. I need to check with Mike. But Sunday evening, and this will be initially Twitch only. It will go up on YouTube afterwards, but just like this show, the comments are Twitch only. We are, HBO's premiering House of the Dragon. And y'all know what a Game of Thrones fanatic I am. Even the terrible seasons I loved. So, and I used to have a tradition. I don't with this LNC, but with the past, well, actually, I still do have the one tradition. Politics is just so Game of Thrones to me. It's just like I wear the Hunger Games pin to like every Libertarian event. Before every LNC meeting, I rewatch every episode of Game of Thrones. But the old LNC, last term, when they started to get really bad, like before meetings, like going into them, I would just be humming the Game of Thrones, the Libertarian Game of Thrones. It'd be da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Da-na-na. So I love the politics of it. I love and hate it. I love it because I hate it. So I will be doing commentary shows immediately after. So it's not going to be super polished like some of these. It's going to be like, just like I did with the Anarchists. So boom, a half hour after the episode's over, my ass will be down here in the basement talking about the episode. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, maybe that's something you would enjoy. So that's going to be it for this evening. I'm going to upload this video as well to YouTube. But hopefully I'll see you on Sunday for House of the Dragon with Renatus Targaryen. I don't know what kind of accent that was. It's my bad Russian accent. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to get going. Remember, touch grass. Just do it. And I will see you on Sunday. Bye-bye. Love you.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they want